Over the land there lies a long shadow, westward reaching wings of darkness. The tower trembles, to the tombs of kings doom approaches. The dead awaken, for the hour is come for the oath-breakers. At the stone of Eric they shall stand again, and hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Whose shall the horn be? Who shall call them from the prey twilight, the forgotten people? The heir of him to whom the oath they swore. From the north shall he come, need shall drive him. He shall pass the door to the paths of the dead. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are exploring prophecy and foresight in Middle-earth, the ability to see or predict into the future. Sources for this video are in the description and cards. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Prophecy and foresight are strange, subtle, but also very clearly utilized powers within Tolkien's world in all of its ages. Whether it is Galadriel's mirror in telling what has been, what is, and what may yet come to pass, or the Palantir that manipulated Denethor by the will of Sauron into feeling a false sense of what could or would be, or Faramir and Boromir's dream, or even small moments of clarity for what one day would be for certain characters. It is everywhere. Where exactly foresight comes from as a power is unknown, but often it is a sign of high character wisdom and blessings from the powers of Arda of some kind. Potentially there are other things at work, like the prophecies acting as interventions of Iru's will, or the will of the Valar to ensure that specific events do come to pass. Or it could be something else, perhaps the very innate nature of Middle-earth, that allows certain foresight into the future for some characters. So let's start by looking at some of these instances of foresight and prophecy, more of which can be found in the Tolkien Gateway article specifically below, but I think we can do a pretty full exploration of the topic without having to look at every instance of it, because to be honest, there are many of them, and a lot of them aren't even mentioned in the article. The first, for instance, that comes to my mind is actually the music of the Ainur at the beginning of time, and the vision that was shown to the Ainur of the world to be. The Ainur saw then only as much as could be revealed to them by Iru in that moment. They saw the coming of the children of Iluvatar, and so forth, and went to work afterwards in the world in order to make such a vision so, even though they did not see all ends. In fact, there's quite a lot in that vision that they did not see. That last bit is a common theme about foresight, is that, as Gandalf says, not even the very wise can see all ends. Now, some instances of foresight and prophecy are rather circumstantial and specific, perhaps dependent upon certain actors and actions for particular outcomes to also occur, such as Turin needing to save Finduilas of Nargothrond, Orodreth's daughter, so that he could be saved from his doom set upon him by Morgoth. He could not save her, and was doomed. Or Huor's last words to King Turgon of Gondolin, that they would never meet again, but from them a star would spring, referring to Eärendil. But of course this seemed dependent on Huor staying in the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, and sacrificing himself for Turgon to escape, among many other things. Even Dain foretelling that the world would need to change, and a greater power than the dwarves would need to come to Moria before the dwarves could retake those halls, stands out as something that needed to happen in order for the grand design to be complete. Boromir and Faramir's dream of the halflings and the broken sword stand also as specific enough to fit in this category, as such a dream drove Boromir to go to Rivendell. But some foresight and prophecy is also far broader and less specific, almost more thematic for certain peoples or timeline, but also in some ways more subtle in how it is explained. Such as Feanor capturing the light of the two trees in the Silmarils before the trees were destroyed by Ungoliant. Perhaps, unlike what Yavanna believed, he did not do that out of foresight, but just out of a desire to hold the light for himself, regardless of the fate of the trees. Even though it is also said in the Dagor Dagorath, the light would be retrieved from the broken Silmarils. Or Idril, feeling a dread that caused her to make a tunnel for people to escape Gondolin through. She wasn't exactly sure what would happen, but that feeling saved many lives, including her life and those of her family members. Or the Druidine, feeling Numenor shift beneath them centuries before the downfall and leaving Numenor. Even Glorfindel saying that the Witch King would not fall by the hand of man begs the question of how or if he would ever fall. This is all to say that prophecy in Middle-earth at large can be precise or not so, and it can have specific implications or prerequisites for something to occur, but usually prophecies and foresight point characters in better directions rather than worse ones, directions that are bound to occur. And again, typically characters that have such gifts are indeed gifted by some greater power or fate with these prophecies, or visions, or foretellings. But whether or not all of those involved in prophecies actually abide by them and do what is prophesized is somewhat varied, for if they don't follow the advice in those prophecies, usually they suffer some sort of major loss. Malbeth the Seer, as a prophet among the men of Arnor was named, had two large prophecies that impacted the fate of the men of the West. The first stated that Arvedui would either be the last king of Arthedain, the remnant of Arnor, or he would change his name and become the lord of a great realm. If his people took the less hopeful path, the better thing would occur. Despite this, the men of Gondor and Arnor took the more hopeful path, and Arvedui was indeed the last king of Arthedain. So because they acted for the more hopeful path, they suffered a greater loss. Either way, the prophecy came true, but the choice was indeed there. The second prophecy of Malbeth was about Aragorn, the one I read at the beginning of the video, that stated he would come to the paths of the dead, and need would drive him, and he would claim the loyalty of the Oathbreakers. Indeed, Aragorn did exactly this, and it would help him and all of the West in their victory over Sauron during the height of the War of the Ring. If he hadn't fulfilled this prophecy, if that was even possible, to be honest, because most, if not all, prophecies in Middle-earth do find some sort of fulfillment, I am unsure if the War of the Ring could have been won. Likely not. Like the two types of foresight we discussed before, Malbeth's Arvedui prophecy was less specific and more contingent on the actions of others. It offered some sort of choice, but did come true all the same, while Malbeth's Aragorn prophecy was far more specific and truly foretold the events to come in a later century of the world, but had no sort of alternative. It seemed that it would eventually happen. Whether one wishes to call this world building, magic, plot armor, or something else both inside the lore and from a world building perspective, foretellings and prophecies play such large roles in Middle-earth, apart from oaths, curses, and dooms, which do have prophetic elements for sure, but they are usually powerful outcomes that are laid upon characters by other entities, almost like spells of sorts. Prophecies might have some of that power, for perhaps if it is foretold, it is more bound to happen, or will inevitably happen. Sometimes what will be only if others act a certain way as well. But what do you all think, my friends? This is a pretty complex topic, again, both within and without the lore. There are many, many instances of prophecy and foresight in the Legendarium. There are so many more, especially on a character-by-character basis, talking about moments small and large, like when Feanor prophesied that the elves would not be able to throw down the Thangorodrim after all, so on and so forth along those lines. So even though I hit many of them, talking even lightly about them in this video, I feel that it would have been too repetitive to speak about each instance individually, at least in a thematic world-building sense. With that being said, prophecies certainly help guide the actions of others, and even stand to depict the things that the very wise and great cannot foresee, such as the Hour of the Shirefolk in saving Middle-earth. That was not something that the wise could have foretold, until that very hour was upon them. And so, my friends, we come to the end of our tale about prophecy and foresight in Middle-earth. From this tale, we see that we must use our own foresight to the best of our ability to guide our actions, but also accept that there are many things we cannot see, and we cannot predict all ends. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on this topic? Let me know in the comments below. I really do like this concept from a literary and in-lore perspective of foresight and prophecy, especially when they are poetically carried out and or overcome. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta or United Cutlery, Lord of the Rings sword statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch and Patreon. Also, please check out Z-Wood and their wood-carved maps and clocks, and use the code in the description for 15% off at checkout. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Peter Shepard, John Hume, Reese Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore Moonviper, Andrew Carlisle, and Zumi. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on what if Durin's Bane got the One Ring. Seems like a fun summer blockbuster type of video to do. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.